back to Brow Education. I'm your host, Megs, and I have the lovely Renee here of Brow Down Studios. I am so stoked to have him on. Would you mind telling our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Yes, thank you so much for having me on. I am the founder of Brow Down, which is two salons in Los Angeles. We have one in downtown LA and one in Beverly Hills. I have 12 estheticians that work for me and brow artists. And then I'm also the founder of Brow Down Studio Pro. So Brow Down Studio Pro is our brow and lash lamination line and professional brow tools.
I
Yeah.
love it. So you just said you have 12 estheticians working under you. How is managing a staff like that? That's like such a, huge accomplishment, A. Congratulations. Your success is so inspiring, but
Thank
that is a
you.
lot to handle.
It is, yeah. And I in the beginning when I just was only focusing on my salon, it was just me that was managing the team as well as managing my own clients and really just managing my crazy life. But now because of, things have grown and scaled, I actually have help. I have a team that helps me both manage the salon. I'm also very lucky to have a really high esthetician retention. We don't have a lot of movement that happens. So I think people are happy to work at the studio, which is great because it means that they're able to just service their clients. And, one of the things that I always tell my estheticians is that even though you're working for Bow Down Studio, you should always think about running your business inside of another business. And I'm very lucky to have a group of very motivated artists that kind of like run their own books. Really, they make their own schedule, they service their clients, and it's great. Yeah. Hoping
Honestly,
it
I
stays
feel
that way.
like thinking back of like being a newer brow artist, like working for somebody else, I feel like your layout of how you run that just feels good. Because I feel like you kind of lose your empowerment when you're not able, when you're too restricted. Like we were just talking about this before hopping on the call. Feeling a little too constricted is really hard. And I feel like most of us in the industry have that creativity aspect, which makes it hard for us to be too micromanaged. I think it's a real flex for you to like allow your estheticians to kind of be their own boss within themselves, as far as like managing their time. Plus, it has to help with you, like not having to micromanage too much. I mean, that takes a ton of.
Yeah. Well, I'm myself, we were just joking about both being Aries right now, but we were, we don't like being managed. And I feel like when you empower people to kind of do their own thing, within guidelines, of course, there are guidelines to uphold the quality and integrity of the brand. But I feel like when you empower people, they just are happy at work. And even when it comes to like making their own schedules, I let them make their own schedules. Obviously, if they're trying to
I
build a
love
clientele, you don't want to be unavailable on Saturdays for 2 months or something. So that's a little,
absolutely.
but yeah,
Yeah,
I
we have to
think
be realistic.
exactly. But I think more freedom means happy estheticians.
I totally agree. I love that. And I think it's a big flex also to like have a high retention rate because I think especially in the employment world with estheticians, just in the beauty world, maybe not even just estheticians, I feel like there is a high retention or like turnover rate that can happen, especially with like a bad manager or bad, whatever. I think there's a lot of people doing really, really good and that's definitely grown, but I definitely think all of us have a story or two about a time when we didn't have the greatest experience working with anybody, which
Yeah.
kind of brings me to the beginning of your brow journey. How did you get into the brow world? What kind of kicked it off and made you want to stick within this niche?
This is something that I really had to think about because I even asked myself and I asked my husband, like, how did this all happen with brows? Like, when brows are like a thing, But
Yeah.
brows are one of the things that I always felt in esthetician school. When I went to esthetician school many years ago, I always felt like it was fun. And I always felt like it wasn't like I was doing, I mean, I love facials too, and I love waxing also, but I just feel like those kind of felt like more chores for me. Whereas like brows were like fun and it was kind of like a puzzle, and I always feel like if you're,
Yes.
yeah, right. I always feel like if you're in
Totally
your
agree.
path, like in your path of like what you're supposed to be doing, like it doesn't ever feel like work. It feels fun.
Yeah.
That's kind of like how I like gravitated more towards brows. Originally, when I, went to esthetician school, I thought I was going to do facials and spray tanning, which is crazy to think about now.
Okay. I love What was your first job in the industry? Were you like right into the brow world right out the bat, like right when you got your license?
Well, I've been in beauty since 2006 in some sort of capacity. I originally started on the business side, where I actually worked in retail stores, and well, even before
Okay.
that, I guess I should back up a little bit. But I'm originally a professional singer.
Yes. Oh, I love that you're gonna get to this.
Yeah. I originally was a professional singer, and as a kid I just kind of grew up as like a creative kid. My head in the clouds, and my mom like really nurtured my creativity and said, you can do anything that you want just as long as you do it 100%. I always had that encouragement, but I studied opera in college and then decided that the whole broke artist life was not for me. I really loved opera and I loved the craft, but I just feel like I needed a job because you do have to kind of have some financial support. There's, within the opera world, you have to do a lot of free work for 10 years until your voice fully develops, which is really hard.
Wow.
Yeah.
No kidding.
I just thought like I love products, I love facial products, I love skincare products, so why don't I just get into that? I started
Yeah.
as a part-time associate, then a full-time associate, then a manager, then assistant manager, then store manager, then regional manager, and then I became now working on the corporate side for more like education and business development, and that's kind of like where my career ended within corporate beauty, was in business
Oh,
development. I always kind of had like that business mind, but then I thought I'm pushing too many papers. I want to be working on people because people is what makes me happy. I got my esthetician's
yeah.
license, fell in love with brows then, and then fresh out of school, I actually started working for a really big company that was launching their brow services on Rodeo Drive. So,
Oh,
so originally, this big brand, they had this whole concept of like, we're going to have our makeup studio, but then we're going to also be offering brow services. We want you to be our go-to brow person. We're going to send you celebrities. We're going to send you PR opportunities. You're going to be like our brow guy on Rodeo Drive. So I did that. Some of that was true, but most of it was not. All these empty promises.
okay.
And eventually it just came to a conversation that I had with the people there that were like, what we want to have is not really happening. We want you to manage the store. And it was just like really heartbreaking because it was so many steps
Oh,
back. Yeah. And
yeah.
while I did get some good experience, and when I was working for that company, I got really world class training with their brow people because it was a new concept for the US, but worldwide they were like really really famous for like their brow services. So I did get some
Okay.
really amazing training. I went to another really big brow chain, um, that yeah, another really big brow chain, kind of got some stuff there. And one day I was just like, you know what? Why am I not doing this? Like, I have the business
Yeah.
acumen. I have the experience to be able to manage the business. I have my artistry skills. I love this. Like, why don't I just go out on my own? I opened Brow Down Studio in 2016, and ever since then, I always say I opened with the single wax pot and the hunger to make a name for myself, and it's just never stopped.
I love that so much. That's so incredible because I feel like for some of us who just start the beauty school route, like we don't get the business background. Like you had
Hmm.
so many foundational skills that led you to where you're at, which clearly I think has helped you gain the success that you are at right now and kind of almost in a sense direct you. You kind of like were on your path, not on your path. Like it helped you
Hmm.
get to where you are now and be so much more successful within your own business. And we're
Hmm.
also thankful for that because I love Brow Down lamination line so much and use it in my studio. And it kind of segues to the next question is how did you get the idea for starting the laminate or wanting to create a lamination system and how did that journey go? Because I know that that had to be quite
It was and it is. Yes, it continues to be. In early 2019, we're actually one of the first studios in LA to ever do brow lamination.
okay.
As an Aries, we're the kind of people that when we love something, we dive 100%. And I know that you're like that too, because I looked at your manual
Yeah.
and your brow lamination manual, and it's just so thorough with the science and like everything that you need to know about brow lamination is within your manual. I know that you're like this
Thank
too,
you.
but yeah,
Yes.
no, it's amazing. And actually, if you haven't seen Meg's manual, you definitely need to look at it because I myself have learned so much from your manual.
Oh, thank
But
you. I
one,
appreciate that.
so in being in Aries, we're like super obsessive, and when we find something new that we love, we're like literally just like we're obsessed with it, and we
So we're here.
just dive in. Yeah, we dive in 100%. And I just fell in love with lamination right away. I've always been a natural brow artist and like a brow
Yeah.
rehabber, and I just thought like this is so cool. Like this needs, I think this is going to be blow up. And originally when brow lamination first came out, they were saying that it's just the trend. It's just like microblading. People aren't going to do it. A brow
Mm,
tattoo, a brow perm, that's so weird. But I always
so
knew that it was going to be something that was really big. I actually was a master trainer for a really big, famous line here in the States. And then I did that for 2 years, actually during COVID. And then I trained. By now, I've trained close to like 8,000 brow artists, both virtually and in
incredible.
person. Yeah. And I fulfilled my contract with that company. And then it was so weird. And I feel like talking about like being on your path, but within like a couple days of me fulfilling my contract, I was approached with a cold call from a manufacturer in Italy that said, "Do you have any interest in creating your own line?" And I thought, this is
Wow.
it's kind of too perfect
Right.
for it to not. I like blindly said yes, and it's one of those things where like like when you're walking and then your body's like following you, but you're walking in that dark direction. It's
Yes,
almost like
absolutely.
my mouth said that I wanted to do it before I knew how to execute.
Very Aries. That snap
Exactly.
decision to make.
Yeah. Wait. Did I just do this? Yeah. So then I actually got to work with the manufacturer in Italy to develop this really unique formula. And one of the things that inspired me was I fully immersing myself in all of these different lines. I became an 8-time certified artist with all these different lines. And I thought, how amazing would be if there was just one line that could really address the needs of all hair types, that didn't damage your brows and didn't smell like shit. So that's kind of like what
Portray.
inspired. Yeah. So yeah, that's what kind of inspired the creation of it. It's kind of crazy because after like a year in, I'm like, oh my god, like we've gone too far. Like I can't stop now. And it is a lot of work, more work than I would have ever thought. And I'm working more now than I ever have in my whole life. But it's little things that come to you that kind of give you assurance that you're going the right way.
Yes. Oh, I love that so much. What brought you to the aloe-based encapsulation? Because I feel like that's such an incredible way to not only, allow it to penetrate properly, like just give it a little juicy boost of hydration too.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, as an esthetician, I'm super into like biohacking. I'm into, like being like the most efficient in any capacity, like if
Yeah.
I'm doing something on a client, like it actually needs to do more, than what it's supposed to do.
Yeah.
I thought like, there's gels and there's creams, but why, like, what's a more natural way of doing this? And, in LA, I guess this would also inspire too, but LA girls, like, they're very ingredient savvy. And I think that's true for anywhere. But I feel like in LA, it's
Yeah.
very ingredient savvy and they're very like, I don't like chemicals. Okay, well, which chemicals do you like? Like, I don't know chemicals, right? I just thought,
Oh my God, I love
yeah. So I just thought, like, why, like, how do we incorporate more natural ingredients? How do we not fry the hair? How do we not fry the skin by causing so much
that.
inflammation? That was something that my chemist and I talked about. And then we were like, okay, well, what about aloe? Like, it's like a gel. It's kind of like, the consistency is so cool. I feel it could actually be really good in a brow lamination system. And that's kind of like where it
Yeah.
was. And we found a way to supercharge it and stabilize it to carry the TGA in it.
Mhm. That's so incredible. And then you also created a new wax product using another hydrating ingredient, hyaluronic acid, if I'm
Mhm.
remembering
Yes.
correctly.
Uh-huh.
And I love that you're just always focusing on that hydration. I just said this to a client the other day that I feel like one of the things that we, at least in this day and age and like where we're at with the beauty world, is hydration gets left in the dust a lot of the times. We're so excited about serums and like different chemicals and all these things. And I think hydration gets left out and it's such an important factor. What kind of brought you into creating that wax line? And tell me just a little bit more about it. I'm so excited for something new specifically for brow artists.
Yeah, well, I feel like brow artists now, there's so much more that's required of us. Not only is it required for us to execute on an incredible service and an incredible result, but also, we're also skin professionals, And I think like going back into that thing, like how do we give the maximum efficiency by providing really high quality ingredients? We say it's like skincare meets wax. And aside from that, my philosophy when it comes to waxing is always hydrating the hair follicle first. because so many people and so many waxers that I train, we're all trained with apply baby powder to absorb any excess oil
Yeah.
or anything like that. But what it does is it actually really dehydrates the follicle and it makes it so stubborn to come out. When it's hydrated, it
That makes
slips out a lot more.
sense.
hmm And aside from that, hydrated, it's much more gentle on the skin. It creates almost kind of like a barrier within the wax, so it's much more gentle on the skin also. Sorry, did I lose you? Sorry, did I lose you?
Oh, no, you're fine. I'm
Okay.
sorry. I think it was on my end. We had a wildfire run through our area, and our internet's been kind of spotty, so
Oh my god.
I know, crazy. Sorry. So
So
we were talking about the wax and hydration within the hair follicle. I don't know exactly where we cut off, so maybe backpedal just a smidge. Sorry about that.
yeah. Well, one of the things about waxing is that in order for the hair to slip out with ease and cause minimal irritation to the skin, hyaluronic acid acts as kind of like a barrier between the skin and the wax. And then also, when
Oh,
a hair is hydrated, the follicle of the hair is hydrated, it slips out better with ease.
I love that. That's
Yeah.
incredible. Now, is it a soft wax or a hard wax?
We always say it's hard wax. It's the precision of a soft wax with the texture and gentleness of a hard wax.
Okay, I'm so excited. I personally
Yeah.
use hard wax in my studio. I just
Yeah.
feel like the logistics of being like mostly a threader, the logistics of having just the hard wax and not like a bunch of other things for something I don't use super often makes the most
hmm
sense. But
hmm
are you predominantly in your studio when you're doing brows, do you predominantly use hard wax? Are you sometimes a soft wax user? Kind of what's your
I'm normally a soft waxer just to get the
Okay.
precision. And normally when I wax brows, and this is something that I train, but it must be done superficially. I see so many people that apply so much pressure on the area, especially when it's in a vulnerable state after lamination. I feel like waxing a laminated brow has to be much more superficial. That's why I always say it's kind of like the precision of a soft wax, but the texture of a hard wax. It's almost kind of like a soft butter.
Love that. That's such a good
hmm
point. I feel like I see that a lot, especially with like watching videos on social media. I'll see somebody using like a spatula and they're like pressing so hard and I'm just like thinking about like that like poking you in the eyelid and I'm just like I don't even not even like the hair removal part or anything else. I'm like that seems uncomfortable, especially
Yeah.
with like a soft wax because obviously there's not a whole ton of barrier between the hairs and the skin and all of that. So I
Yeah.
love that you did
Yeah.
that kind of encapsulating everything. I feel like
Yeah.
working with estheticians creating products, I like am immediately like sign me up because you guys would know and you understand like
hmm
the ins and outs of being behind the chair and what the client really truly needs. And I just love that aspect about it.
Yeah, and the
Have you
crazy thing
ever
is, oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say the crazy thing is it's the industry's first brow wax. Like, how is brows such a big thing, but we've never had a wax specifically for brow artists? That is something
Yeah.
that's also super innovative. No one's ever called out a wax specifically for brows.
It's so true because they want everything. I think that's the catch 22 of trying to be a company that caters to everyone is that
hmm
they almost remove themselves from anybody who's within a niche. They
hmm
want to be like, you can use it for all of the stuff, but it's like, I don't do body waxing, so that's not really beneficial to me.
Right.
I'm so excited to get my hands on that because that's such an incredible aspect of it. I feel like now that I understand maybe a few years ago, but now that brows have gotten to the level that they're at, we do deserve to be carved out and I'm stoked that there's more, you know, I don't know, shedding more light on that. Like we're getting
hmm
more products like your lines and Emily of Brow Fox. I feel like she does a really good
Yes.
job of creating specifically for the brow artist, which I love.
hmm
And you're also at a lot of trade shows, which is cool because I've definitely been to a trade show in the more recent years now being just a brow artist and there's no classes really for us. Like how has it been stepping into the trade show world and doing courses and working with estheticians in that way?
I think it's really fun. I mean, what the fun part is that, like because we're a new brand, we've always just been like focusing on new client acquisition, getting our name out there. But the cool thing lately has been that like we have our super fans now that are like, "Oh my god, I love your line. I need to stock up on a bunch of stuff." And it's just really
Yeah.
nice to have that community aspect of it too. Kind of like our intention when it comes to uh trade shows have been like just the community connection as well as the advanced education too. I always say, and
Yeah.
this is one of the things that I really respect about you too, Meg, is that you're so passionate about education. And, you and I both, I think we connect on the fact that like there's not advanced education when it comes to brows. Like we go
Yes,
over, I've
totally.
heard so many estheticians that have been like, we had like a couple brow services within our wax week, and it's like wax week,
Right.
so that's,
Yeah, I feel like I remember even in being in school and then fresh out of school and going in and having a license and being like, I did this once. Like,
yeah.
how am I licensed and legally allowed to offer this service for money to top it all off? Like, that's such a crazy exchange. And like, it's not even as simple. I mean, I guess there's not really many. There's some elements, I guess, makeup maybe that like you can potentially not hurt somebody as long as you're being sanitary. But like, we're removing hair from people's bodies. Like, there's so many elements that can go wrong. It's such a crazy thought that it's so chill. Maybe it's the anxious energy that I have that makes me want to be more educated, but I just feel like it's so important to learn these things. And
For
speaking
sure.
of beauty school, you just got your lamination line into Aveda, I think it is.
Yes. Yeah. We just got
That's
into
so
Aveda.
exciting.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. We're piloting 15 locations.
Awesome.
And so, yeah, we're going to be in, well, I can't say that. I don't know if I can say the official ones because we're piloting, but
Sorry.
no, 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 it's okay. No, I caught myself too because I already got in trouble for it. But, I'm just so excited. But yeah, we're in,
No, it's exciting.
yeah, there's 62 locations in total. We got into 15 so far. We're piloting. It was actually a really huge deal for us because not only is it our school partnership, and it's a big deal because going back on the education, as a brand, that's something that we're super passionate about. We have Brow U within Brow University within Brow Down Studio Pro, which is basically our advanced education that really tailors the need for advanced education. And we bridge the gap between like esthetician school where you have a wax week and a paying client. We want to make sure that we're there so you're not practicing on paying clients, like you just said.
Yes.
But that was actually something that was really so rewarding, and it was so nice to be recognized by, Aveda that has such a high integrity when it comes to education. Like they were really on board with Brow U. They were just as excited to work with us as we are with them. And Aveda
I love
also, for anyone that went to Aveda, they know that they're so ingredient specific. And
this.
for us to kind of have like past the standard, I guess, when it comes to ingredients and really like brands that they work with is a huge deal for us.
Yeah, that's a really nice compliment. I love that.
Mhm.
Will this be something that's included in the education? Is it going to be extra for the students? Or like how
Mhm.
does that kind of, I mean, as much logistics as you can really say. I know it's a little bit early stages.
Yeah, well, it's now all beauty schools are realizing, and actually, I'm working on a secret little project too. That's going to be super exciting. But now beauty schools are realizing that, there are so many brow artists that are making well over six figures only doing brows. And there's so many of us, and I know you've been doing brows for many years too. And there's many of us that have had successful careers as brow artists and are making over six figures. But now it's starting to realize on a bigger scale. Big
Yeah.
companies are starting to realize that, like, okay, well, if brow artists are having full successful careers, then we need to be teaching brow. It's now like kind of woven into the protocols are woven into their lesson plans and stuff too.
That's incredible because I would have like lost my mind had I actually had curriculum on brow lamination. I don't think it was even mentioned. And
No.
I remember even threading. Threading kind of is on the outlier as well. And I think I remember that there was one sentence in the entire textbook of the like about it, and that was it. And I just think that it's really exciting that, and not that I really knew that I wanted to be like a full-blown brow artist in beauty school. And I think most of us kind of find our way, but I think that maybe we would have found that way a lot quicker had we
Mm-hmm.
gotten a little bit more earlier on. I think that I would have been like more intrigued and a lot less scared. I mean, I remember literally like fighting with other girls in beauty school, being like, I don't want to take the brow appointment today. Like, I'm going to ruin somebody's life. Like, I'm so nervous.
Yeah, I
So
know.
scared.
It's true. I think my first brow, I don't think I even used wax. I think I tweezed, and the number of hairs that I tweezed were like two, and I pinched my client on top of it. So.
True though, because I feel like, I mean, I'm sure you feel the same getting into education. You almost realize that I feel like when I first stepped into education, it was really tricky. I'm like, oh my God, how do I get everything out? And then the longer I've been in education, I'm like, how do I get it all on paper? There's so much to learn. And even as far back, I remember I made a video on like, okay, this is how you properly tweeze. Because I'm like, sometimes even I'll see online and I'm like, that's uncomfortable. Like we need to be spreading the skin needs to be taught. Like there's so many elements that go into everything. And sometimes that
Mm-hmm.
comes second nature to us and sometimes it's a learned skill. Did you feel that you kind of were able to step into the brow world with like almost default knowledge and then you had to backpedal when you were educating to be like, how do I do that?
Well, first of all, it's really nice to hear you say that because I feel like when you explain things, you explain it with so much intention. The fact that that's even going through your mind is crazy because it does not come out that way. But yeah, I mean, it's hard. You know, they always say, like, if you ever want to become a better brow artist, then start teaching it. You know, it does make you a better brow
True.
artist. It makes you more conscious of what you're doing. You know, sometimes we get into like some bad habits and it really forces you to stop that because you start to think of eyes and ears that are watching and listening.
True. That's a
Yeah.
really good point. I think that I would say that's 100% true. In the years that I've been teaching, I've definitely done so much better. And I think the other thing, almost like continuing on from what you're saying, is that I noticed that I would be almost on like a default before I was teaching. I would kind of just go through the motions of what I was doing in the studio. Not to say that I wasn't paying attention, but I was just like, this is how we do things. Whereas after I started teaching, it was like, what if I did things differently today? And how can I still make that work? Like you move around a little bit more and you're almost in that educator hat is always on even if nobody else is watching. You're just like always thinking about how can I explain this better, do things differently, or for
Well, and
somebody
how
with a
do
different
you,
approach.
right, exactly. And then how do you teach intuition? Because intuitively we're doing certain things. And what are you looking for? What is the feeling that you should have when you do something like this instead of this? It becomes a whole
Mhm.
challenge. But you know, that's what's really fun as an
Yeah,
educator too, is that different ways of explaining things. And we all know that some people are visual, some people are hands-on, some people are, you know, and I don't know, I just feel like like it's a whole thing being an educator. You know, you have to really like think about all
it is.
these things.
Yeah. And you're right. Like working with different people, you like you're I feel like we all kind of start default like this is how I learn, this is how I'll teach. And you kind of get to like we're like, okay, well no, now I have to teach a different way because somebody else learns a different way and you kind of just adapt and evolve in that way.
Hmm.
That's so interesting because I totally agree. It's I feel like every new student is almost like a new I don't know, like lesson for yourself. Like, okay, that's something new. And it makes you better for the next person, which is
Yeah.
kind of brow clientele as well. The more you people that you work with, the better it gets from there.
That's so true, you know, and that's something that I always say, like, good business people are not necessarily like, you know, changing things up. Maybe they do change things up, but I think first and foremost, they're good listeners, you know, and if they start to
Yeah.
hear things that are continuing to happen, that, you know, are able to catch a pattern of what people are saying, like the better that you can
Mhm.
listen and then execute to like develop that into your business, it's like how you grow and scale, you know? Like I think
I
the
totally agree.
and I think the opposite would just be going in, doing what you do, not listening, staying there. You know, like I think we always have to be like we have to grow agility, like agility, and just like listen to what people want and just give it to them.
Yep. I love that. It's so true. It kind of brings me to like consultation and working with clients in that way and kind of making sure that you're like really truly listening to what your client needs are. What are
Hmm.
like a tip or two that you would give to like a new brow artist for working with clients and kind of consulting in that way?
Well, yeah, I think first of all, consultation is extremely important. I always say that browse, it's a money making service because it's a high trust service. You know, so many people have been burned literally, like literally and figuratively being burned. As a whole, we have trust issues. You know, we've all had bad
Yeah.
brows and have had to deal with having bad brows for like 1 to 3 months, sometimes even people up to a year where they have really bad brows. I always
Mhm.
think like, you know, consultation of course is important because it becomes more collaborative, you know, and for me I would say that I'm pretty experienced and somewhat successful in this industry. But, you know, I can look at somebody and I'm sure you do the same. I can look at somebody and just be like, boom, I did your brows. I know exactly what I'm doing. You know, what difference does that make if I can't communicate to my client what I want to do with them? You know, I think it's easy to just be like, okay, have a seat here. I'm going to do your brows however I want. But in the end, like we have to remember that we're service providers. Depending, no matter how big you get, we're service providers, and they're paying for something. They're paying for our service. It should
Yep.
naturally become more collaborative, you know, because then people feel like they're heard. And I think that's one of the things that inspires a bad Yelp review is when people don't feel like they're heard, you know. And that's
Yeah.
I always say like Yelp is like one of my favorite things. I like read Yelp reviews like going to sleep. It just puts me to sleep reading all these things, you know. And yeah. But, that's one of the things that clients say is she didn't listen to me. She burned me, literally and figuratively. She did whatever she wanted, and there was no trust. So I always think of like, it's a gift to be trusted by your client. And that's something that should not be taken lightly because, in the end, we want to build long-term relationships with our clients. I always say my relationships with my clients are long-term, not transactional. That's something that really inspires me when taking on a new client, starting with a consultation.
I love that so much because even on the flip side of it, not even looking at like negative reviews, like positive reviews that I've gotten have highlighted she did a really good job of listening to what I needed. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's such
Yeah.
a simple thing that I feel like is overlooked. It's
Mm-hmm.
crazy to me that artists I think it's the hubris. I know that I got out of beauty school with so much ego and I was like, I know everything. I have all the skill and like yada yada yada. But sometimes I feel like people don't let it go. I mean, I remember getting humbled left and right when I got into the actual real world and
Mm-hmm.
then, took a step back and like, wait, I don't know everything. But I
Mm-hmm.
think when you choose to not go that route and think that you do know everything, you can definitely burn bridges with clients. And I'm in a small town. I feel like I mean, not that anywhere else bigger is not as important, but like in a small town, if you are burning bridges, you're really isolating yourself, and you can, lose a clientele even if they love what you do. If one person goes talking trash about you or saying even just like your personality and things, I think that's something that
Mm-hmm.
also that gets lost in translation is that you can be yourself and like have your own personality in the beauty world or in your space and branding and everything, but we need to remember to like still be professional and nice and kind and everything. And I feel like you've always done a really good job of educating and being kind and no like negativity. I know that there's some people with large followings in our beauty world that are negative about brands or they like call people out and they'll do all these things and kind of be a little bit more hateful in that realm. How do you keep it positive? Like what's your kind of, I don't know, viewpoint on that?
Well, I mean, I've unfortunately had people talk really negatively about my brand. It comes with the territory. It's okay. It doesn't happen often, but it has happened before. But I
Hey, it's Emily here from Brow Fox Beauty. I'm so proud to be sponsoring this episode of Brow Education. If you are new here, let me tell you a little bit about Brow Fox Beauty. We are a professional brow line for the esthetician. We specialize in easy retail for the busy esthetician. We also have a line of better back bar basics so you can be super confident putting pre and post wax solution and massage oil onto your client's skin, giving them the best glow and the best brows yet. You can find more information at browfoxbeauty.com or on social media at browfoxbeauty.
Viewpoint on that.
Well, I mean, I've unfortunately had people talk really negatively about my brand. It comes with the territory. It's okay. It doesn't happen
Okay.
often, but it has happened before. But I think as a brand owner, knowing how much work goes into being, a brand owner and how much work goes into putting out a brand, I think that's why I'll never talk shit about a brand, because there's
Mhm.
normally so much time, effort, money, blood, sweat, tears, that goes into that, which is why I'll never talk badly about a brand. I've also never been a fan of like public humiliation or public blasting. I think that's like really
Yeah.
uncalled for. And, I just have such I have such like I love this industry. I love being a brow artist. I love being an esthetician. And I think that there's a posture and there's a grace and poise that comes with our job, and it's so easy to be frustrated with the client that no showed you, and as a result you want to put something on your Instagram, because you're that pissed off. But I always think like, would YSL Beauty do that? Would Milk Makeup do that? Would,
Yeah.
and that's how I view myself. I see myself and my brand as like one of these big people. And I kind of like,
Yeah.
yeah, I maintain a level of integrity for myself and for, us as a whole, everyone, I've heard so many people like, oh, I don't like working with makeup artists. They're bitchy or da 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 da. And every time I hear something like that, it really just breaks my heart because my husband is a professional makeup artist that is also so
Mhm.
talented, passionate, caring, and for people to get this idea of a generalization just really breaks my heart. I just have such a high level and I think so highly of us as estheticians. And, you know, don't get me wrong, I want to get out there and I want to talk shit too, but that's what close friends are for, on
I was just
Instagram.
about to say, keep it.
Exactly. And I just think, you owe it to yourself to not let someone reduce you down to a rant that you put on your story. And also aside
Yeah.
from that, like now that I've been in this industry for a while, I've had the opportunity to work with big brands before. And if you think that people are not watching you and the way that you treat brands or the way that you talk about yourself and the way that you hold yourself, you're wrong because they are always watching. You're always being watched. And
Mhm.
yeah. And aside from that, that's one thing. Another thing is that I limit my time on stories because I feel like, especially when I feel like I'm like depleted and I feel like I need inspiration, I like go out and seek inspiration other places besides Instagram because I feel like Instagram and really comparison is like the killer of all creativity. And I do what I can to nurture my creativity because that's the most powerful thing about you is your own creativity, your own understanding of how things could be.
I love that. It's so true because I mean, like we said earlier in the episode, we're creative beings in this beauty world. And I feel like most of us, anyone I've spoken to, especially me, I've felt that comparison on social media and it is totally a killer. And you're right. I'll take some time off and then you immediately get, that inspiration. And I always say to like friends, followers, whatever, there's so many other realms. Like I know that some people are like, well, there's free education online, and like I learned so much on there. I'm like, there's free education on YouTube, there's textbooks that you can look at, there's books, there's podcasts, there's so many other, if you want to get off that feed, there's so many realms that you can go and still get that free education, and you can still learn something and be within this wheelhouse but also not in
Mm-hmm.
like a detrimental way.
Yeah, yeah, it's so true.
I did see, speaking of education and things like that, and stepping out of your comfort zone, I saw on your air watching all the time, I saw that you trained with Borboleta. I like feel like a stalker, but I saw that you did a training with them doing lashes, and I think that's fun. Well, how did you kind of go to do that, and how was it doing something other than brows?
Well, Kim is the founder of Borboleta, and Mike is the CEO. And I actually just met them in passing, and I feel like they're somebody that I really respect.
Yeah.
And they were like, "You should come to the office one day." And I thought, okay, I will.
I
And
love that so much.
yeah, and actually, I haven't done lashes in so long. I worked for kind of like a lash factory here in LA. That was one of my first jobs out of esthetician school because I thought I was going to be a lash artist too. But so
Really? Oh my
oh
gosh.
yeah, yeah, and I did lash. I worked there for like I think 2 months, and it was just like the most ridiculous experience. I remember the guy that hired me was this other gay guy, and he's like, I know you don't have experience, but I hired you because you're cute. That was like the level of professionalism that was happening at that salon. I was like, okay, and I was, yeah. And I was just like, I knew that I had to get my experience up, but also I just realized like I'm too hyper. Like I got too much going on for me to sit here and do lashes. I gotta get out of here.
That was my issue. Maybe it's
Yeah, no, yeah, no. But yes, I haven't done lashes since then, but I actually go to the Borboleta HQ, which is beautiful. It's in Utah. And they actually launched something called the Borby blend, which is basically like a way of texturing and layering lashes. So I got to learn that
oh
technique and
cool.
yeah, and we actually have some things in the work also in terms of a collaboration. So stay
Oh
tuned for that. Yeah.
yes. I love industry collaboration so much. It's so cool. Cause like that's a couple like you guys together is not a collab that I would have seen coming, like just, predicting. And that's exciting because you know that it's not just about, I don't know, what can we do for each other? It's like what can we do together to make the industry better? And I love that
Hmm.
it's not always like such a, I don't know, like it's not always just a money grab for something. And because I feel like we do see so much trendy marketing and kind of nasty targeted marketing trying to get us to just buy everything and like
Hmm.
all of the trends and like silly extra stuff. And then there's the flip side where there's you guys collaborating with killer education in the mix and really trying to bring something to the forefront that's gonna change the game.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to get into more like brows and the actual like in studio. What is your favorite brow treatment? I feel like you're gonna say brow lamination, so I'm gonna get a little bit more specific after you answer.
Okay.
But what is your favorite brow
Well, the brow lamination, of course, because I'm not only the founder of Brow Down Pro, but I'm also a working brow artist too. I feel like it keeps me in line and it keeps me in touch with what I'm selling, and I'm always thinking of like, what is the best experience? What is the best way to improve the experience for both the client and for the brow artist? And that's kind of something that I'm always thinking about. I hate to say it, and I'm going to get crucified for this from everyone. What I really love, I've been really loving taking brows super thin. There, I said it.
Really? Oh my god, I love that. So do you mean like just shaping wise or like laminating and then going thinner?
No, well, I love shaping wise because all of the LA girlies right now are going super thin. And I think it's kind of
Okay.
like that like Y2K kind of like e-girl kind of vibe.
Yeah.
I actually work on like a good amount of models that, you know, they say like my agent wants to go super edgy. They want me to go with like a thinner brow. It's been kind of fun too. It's been challenging, and it obviously challenges everything that my philosophy when it comes to
Yeah.
brows. I'm always about health, integrity, like natural brows, right? But it's actually been kind of fun though. I mean, I'm having fun. Do I recommend it for everybody? No. I don't think everybody should have
Yeah.
it. But, you know, it goes back to like if the client wants it, I'm going to give it to them, and I'm going to give it to them in a very good way, you know. It's been fun.
Yeah.
I've been having fun with it. Do I think that it's the industry standard? No. Do I think it's a trend?
Okay.
Yes. And do I think people need to get on the every single trend? No. I think trends inform us, they
Good,
don't define us. So, I
good
don't know.
point.
Yeah, I just think it's kind of like another skill
Yeah.
to have in my wheelhouse, you know.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Because you said that you got into the whole realm and especially lamination specifically because you were brow rehabbing. To be going the complete polar opposite is definitely new, but that's a lesson to
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. And I feel like beauty is like a swinging pendulum, you know? We went
I agree.
crazy full during pandemic, you know, where no one was doing their brows, and then we came back the other way. It's like I'm still a
Yeah,
natural brow artist, and I'm still about the health, integrity, fullness of the brows. But I don't want to limit myself and say that I only do this, you know? And
true.
and that's waxing, but I have threading clients also, you know?
Yeah,
I think it's important to, know how to do certain things and don't limit yourself, because I feel like a good artist will be able to take on any medium.
I completely agree. I feel like that's the narrative that I always push when I'm trying to advertise for threading too. I'm not trying to replace your wax model, like of your business model. I'm just trying to say that it's really cool to have all of the elements in your toolkit because I
Exactly.
know for damn sure I'm not trying to turn a client away or tweeze a whole brow.
Exactly.
When it comes to lamination or shaping a brow, do you like a naked lammy or are you tinting? Like what's your kind of philosophy on that?
I think it's case by case scenario. Like I think I always think of hyper personalization for the client, and I think what makes
I
me a good brow
love
stylist, I think what makes me a good brow stylist is that my work looks different every time based on who I'm working on, and
mhm.
I know that there are a lot of successful brow artists that make their living and really their name for themselves by having their look, but I'm just inspired by so many. I'm inspired by like the individual, so like I feel like
Yes.
if a client needs darker brows, then yes, I'll give it to them. If a client doesn't, and if they like naked brows, then I'll do that too. One of the things that I always say, because we have people that are like, "Oh my god, I finally got an appointment with you. I need to do everything, right? Everything that you offer." And it's like, "Girl, no, you don't need everything, okay? You're gonna get scared if you get a brow lamination and tint and you've never done brow lamination before." So,
Yes. I'm such
right?
a believer of that. Like
Yeah.
one step at a time.
Yes, yeah. I always say like, when they ask for that and it's their first time having brow lamination, I always say, let's see what brow lamination looks like alone. If you feel like you need a little bit more, we can decide together and then we can tint.
Yeah, totally. And I feel like the other thing, like you said earlier, we're looking for longevity with our clients. Like I
Hmm.
don't need to do all of it in once because I'm hopefully going to see you in another, 4 to 6 weeks. So we
Yeah.
can do more. We can always change it up. And I feel like also, like you said, lamination is a big change for somebody if it's their first time. I feel like throwing a tint on top of that is a really easy way to scare somebody. And I
Yeah.
really try to keep that more for, like a client I know really well. I had one come in not that long ago, and I've seen her for years but just for threading. And she was like, "We're doing all of it." And I was just like, "I think you can handle it." And she loved it. But it's just like, there's always that little bit in the back of your mind where I'm like, I handed her the mirror and I was like, "It's gonna be really bold today," but like, so nervous that she's gonna be
Yeah.
like, "God, what did I get?"
Yeah, exactly. Well, and the thing is too, like, so many people think like, oh, well, you start thinking dollars, right? Like we charge in studio, we charge an upcharge for a tint, but people start to think of dollars and you never really think about what's going to make the client happy. Like I have so many people that are like, I want everything. And then, they do a lamination and tint and then they walk around thinking like, I fucking hate my brows and I hate
Yes,
lamination, but it's not lamination, it's the
yes.
lamination and tint. You almost kind of like, because you're trying to make that extra money from tinting, you're almost kind of like killing your business when it comes to lamination and having lamination with that client. That's a high ticket item.
That's such a good point. I say that to my clients all the time. I'm like, I don't want to scare you away from the lamination part. And I always try to like tell my clients too that the lamination is for mobility. We're not
Right.
changing hair color. We're not doing anything. We have to keep those in separate categories. And you're right.
Mm-hmm.
I think it can really ruin the whole thing if you do it, if you go too fast and too quick. And
Mm-hmm.
also, if you want to think about it monetarily, like you're essentially losing out on that, up more high end service. If you ruin it the first go around, they're not going to want to come back and try it again.
Yeah, that's true. And then you end up dealing with, they end up texting you like, hey babe, I hate my brows, and it ends up being, getting the money then ends up becoming more expensive for you and you end up losing money because you have to invest in responding to this client and getting back to the client, making them happy, stressing yourself out, dealing with your own mental health. It's always like slow and
Absolutely.
steady.
Wholeheartedly agree with that. Because I feel like the other thing that's a catch 22 in our industry is that we care so much about our clients. Like, I know that I want them to be happy. I don't want anything else. That's my only realm. So if I get that text,
Mm-hmm.
my heart is beating, and I'm like, please just be happy. Like, I'm gonna be so heartbroken if you didn't leave with what you wanted.
Yeah, exactly.
One other thing that I love that you do and have talked about in the past is that you do a brow massage with you have like I don't know if it's an add-on or a part of the brow lamination, but can you explain a little bit about what that is and kind of what your philosophy is behind it?
Yeah. Well, I always think of brows not just being a brow service. I like to make it like a spa service, because there are just so
Yes.
many times where like if you have a busy working mom, that doesn't have time for a full facial and a full massage, but wants to like treat themselves to self-care, I feel like it's nice to add in little things, and obviously with processing time, we have processing time. So what are you doing? Just like sitting there on your phone? So you have a client that's relaxed. And again, this is high trust. Obviously, in being high trust, you want to cater to your clients and you really enhance the experience. I like to do what I call the crown chakra massage, which is basically a glide along the forehead and then lots of pressure that happens at the pulse points. And because there's so many pulse points here on the temple, if you're pressing these and making a moment out of it, like during a processing time, it could literally make your client feel like they have a whole body massage. And I feel like it just really elevates the service. And if you're charging premium prices, and I think that if you're a good brow artist, if you have done the education, if you're professional, you should be charging these prices. I feel like it's just kind of like a nice little added thing. And that's kind of like what we've become known for. I have many clients that realistically they don't grow that much brow hair. They could probably get away with getting their brows done once a quarter, but will come back every month just to have their brows like cleaned up, tweezed a little bit, and then also have the crown chakra massage.
I love that. Is it something that you have as an add-on that they can add on to their service and just have that like little extra boost? Or is
It's
it like
included.
ingrained in it?
No, it's included. And
Cool.
actually, I feel like it's just the extra something special, and I feel like everybody should have their extra something special that's not marketed, and I feel like
Hmm.
just really being in tune with what your client needs. Like, for instance,
Yeah.
this is going to be another hot topic, but I did a brow lamination on a client and obviously brow lamination is technically contraindicated for pregnancy, but her doctor
Hmm.
okayed it and she was like one of these glam girls that are like, I'm not going to have messed up brows when I deliver this baby, right?
That was one of the
Exactly, we all know those people. But she got a doctor's clearance and she's like, it's fine, the baby's fully developed, I'm going to have this baby like next week, I need great brows. But she was so exhausted and she was just like, you could just tell it's a lot, like third trimester to have a baby and carrying around like, a big belly. So I like laid her
Mhm.
down. When she was laid down, I like gave her a foot massage. And it's something that obviously could have been marketed, but I just feel like it's that extra something special that is like, makes people know that you care, and that you are invested in your clients not only having great brows, but also having a great experience. I feel like when you can do little things like that to surprise them, I don't know, it's exciting and it's fun and it's luxury,
I
you know?
completely agree. And I think that those little elements are really what causes the client to like talk to their friends about you or like leave a really thoughtful laid out review. Like I feel like
Mm-hmm.
these little moments are the what like make really good impressions. Like cuz I feel like just like with us, you know, a brow service can get repetitive and it can just be one
Mm-hmm.
more thing that's on their, you know, to-do list and they're like, "Okay, go in and get it done." It is what it is. I know that like some of my clients really love that it's quick, but I want to make the most out of that time that they're there even if it is
Mm-hmm.
only 15 minutes. I want it to be the part of their day that makes their life easier, not harder. I love that you
Exactly.
go that extra mile. I think it does make a big difference for the clients.
Absolutely.
Well, I feel like I could talk to you for hours, but
Say
I did email you a couple of questions before we got on the call, and I wanted to kind of dive into those. One of the questions was, what is some advice that you would give young you or a younger us?
oh my God, so many things.
Right.
But I
We can go
think,
back.
yeah, I think it's first and foremost, and it may seem cliche, but trust your intuition. I feel like if you get, you have, it's all vibes, right? Like you have to, our business, we enter this business because we love people. We have a really great way of communicating and we have a great way of connecting with people that no industry has. Like I think we're some of the most like empathetic, like caring people, and at times can actually be a little bit to our detriment. I feel like sometimes,
Wholeheartedly.
yeah, I feel like sometimes we find ourselves like overextending ourselves. I think having good boundaries is one, trusting your intuition. Like if you feel like you're being taken advantage of, then, make sure that you have your systems in place and a healthy boundary. And I'm not saying to go on. I see people that are like, these are my policies and you will abide by them if you want to be in my business. It doesn't have to be that, but it has to just be,
Yeah.
like have boundaries for yourself. Know that you're going to be dealing with a lot of different personalities and always
Mm,
just try to remain professional and trust your gut, because I think it starts with trusting your gut. And as you experience more and more, I still trust my gut and I'm still run my business and I've built my empire by trusting my intuition first and foremost. When you become more and more successful in this industry, there's so many opportunities that come your way. And that's one of the things that I love about this industry is that there's so many opportunities, so many ways to make money, so many ways to collaborate. In the end, you have to ask yourself, like, does this person make me feel something? Does this person have my
yeah.
best interest in mind? Am I going to be overextending myself and giving too much and I'm going to be taken advantage of? I feel like these are things that you have to become in tune with first and foremost.
I agree. Yeah, you can still be kind and have those things, but you also don't want to be like a doormat and be stepped all over. I think
Exactly.
that there is finding that fine line, but sticking to it.
Mhm.
One question that wasn't on the list, but I totally forgot to ask you earlier was what is your favorite brow trend? I know we talked about how like lamination definitely isn't a brow trend, it's sticking around, but there has been quite a few things that have kind of come and gone. What has been your favorite?
I love baby brow lambs. Baby brow lambs are basically when the first part of the brows are laminated, and then the others are more like tailored and could be like a little bit more
Yeah.
sculpted. I feel like that's really
Okay.
pretty. Yeah, because I feel like, originally when brow lamination launched in 2020, 2019, it was that big, fluffy, crazy brow that we all loved. And I still love them, of course. I have a special place in my
Yes.
heart. But I feel like it's evolved now. Now that we know that brow lamination is not just a trend, it's not going anywhere. I love to see kind of the style evolve and be more like baby brow lamp. So like lifted in the fronts and then more tailored on the tails.
I love that.
Every time I talk about this, I always get this question. I'm just going to pretend like you're asking the question and answer my own question. But people are always like, well, if I'm doing a baby brow lamb, like, do I cut my time in half? Do I charge less? No, you do not. You charge the same amount because it's still your time. You're still running all the processing. Even though the style
Mhm.
is calling for something different, it's still a brow lamination service and you're going to put in the same amount of effort and the same amount of time. You will not change your price.
Good. Yeah, that was gonna be my question. It was like, how would that lay out? Because no, that makes a lot of sense, but you're right. You may be using maybe like a slightly less solution, but you're still, yeah, the process wouldn't be, I don't think, any different. I mean, of
Yeah.
course, everything depending on hair type and all of that. But that's a good
Mm-hmm.
point. I love that.
Yeah.
What was your
Mm-hmm.
thought? I guess we're just gonna spiral off of that because of the question. But what was your thought with the airbrush brow
I like it.
tint
I
kind
think
of
it's
thing?
cool. I mean, me and my team are learning it now just because we have so
Yeah,
many people that are requesting it. Are we going to offer it as like a service that we're going to, are we going to make, is it going to be a big part of our business? I don't know. But I think it's important that we at least know how to do it. I don't know. I think
yeah,
it's interesting. I think it's interesting. I don't
yeah,
know that it's for everybody, but it's
yeah.
fun.
That's what I've told people who've asked about it. I'm like, I think that you need to figure out what works for you and like the logistics of it. Are you going to invest in like a full new system? If that's like in it for you, go ahead. But like, I think you could still offer the similar like hybrid tint or whatever and like still get your client, because not every client is going to be like super aware of, obviously LA is a little bit different, but like not every client is going to be super hyper aware of like our niche brow trends.
Right.
But
Yeah.
sometimes they
Yeah.
get out. One of the other questions on the email that I sent was, what is your word for the year?
I would say that my word is infrastructure because I
Ooh,
feel
I like
like my business is growing and scaling, and it's not, originally when I came out with my brand, I thought like, oh, I'm going to sell to my community, and I have a little bit of a following, and then, my followers are going to love it and it's really for them. But in doing so, it's just taken off in such a way that like, it's like, okay, shoot, okay, well, what does it mean if we sell to different countries? And we just got into another country. I can't share too
Oh,
much
that's
about it, but
cute.
we're going to make an official announcement pretty soon. But what does that look like
Yeah.
when we're in a different country? And how do we
Wow.
legally and logistically make that happen? A couple weeks ago, I
Yeah.
met with the FDA because
It's so crazy.
I know I was like, when the hell did I ever think I was going to meet with the FDA? But there's actually there's a new standard that happened on July 1st where now any products that touch the skin have to go through the FDA. They have to be classified.
Oh,
Yeah. And we didn't really have so much regulation when it came to cosmetics, but we're now aligning more with like the European standard, which is great. I mean, it's
I
great.
love that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's great for consumer. It's
There's a
great
lot
for
to go
us.
download, I'm sure.
Yeah, but as a brand owner, it's just like, shit, okay, so what
Yeah.
do we got to do? How much is this going to cost me, But I just feel like more and more as the brand grows, there has to be more infrastructure that's put into place, with having Aveda now being in schools. What does our like in school program look like and how do we execute that? I had to bring someone on. I think you may have met actually because you're one of our certified pro trainers, but we had to bring in a new training coordinator named Emily, who's incredible. She
Yeah.
has an education background. She loves writing protocol. We brought her
Oh,
on
love
to kind of help us with education and all that. But it's just like different things that have become more and more official that make me feel like more of a legitimate brand. Not that it never was, but scaling means
yeah.
like legally, financially, business wise.
Yeah.
Now it's really scary when I think about it because when you make mistakes, you always want to minimize the amount of risk and financial
Yeah.
cost. But now, we're fully in now,
Yeah.
and we're fully a brand,
Over.
and we're going global. So I'm like, how the hell do we execute and how do we, put in infrastructure? I feel like infrastructure is the
I
word. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that. And obviously a very required word to keep true to yourself with everything that's going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
This kind of segues nicely to the next question. What are 3 of your favorite self-care products that you're using in or out of the studio?
Ooh.
Because you got to take it, given everything that's going on.
That's true. That's true. I feel like one of my favorite things is time blocking. And I've become more and more
Ooh.
into time blocking. And actually, this is something that I encourage everybody to do, And I think what has put me on this path is starting with clients, Like when I see a client, if I'm booking them for a 30-minute service, I'm going to make sure that I start right on time and I end right on time, It's got me into this
Mhm.
mindset of time blocking where I say like, okay, I'm going to see 8 clients in 4 hours, 30 minutes each, and I'm going to stay on time. It's got me thinking like, okay, well, what is it going to be like if I time block like a meeting that I may have with this person where I carve out, this amount of time and I focus all of my energy toward that? Because also being ADHD, I think a lot of us are like
Yeah.
creative all over the place, I feel like having structure within our own business or our own personal life too, and even time blocking like a Sunday, I think, I guess,
Yes.
more structure. And I that includes work time or rest time too,
Yeah.
So like on Sundays, I don't touch my phone. I will work out and I'll be on my phone up until 10 a.m. And then after 10 a.m. to 7 p.m., not touching my phone. I
I
think just
love
like
that.
time, yeah, and time blocking like that, time blocking with my friends too, because I think your social life is equally as important. And, like for the first 5 years of building my business, I had no social life, but that's not healthy, So, putting
Yeah.
things on the calendar and saying, I want to have dinner with you on Thursday night from 6:30, and I'll put in my calendar 6:30 to 8:30 is going to be devoted to my friend. And that means being fully present too, not being on my phone or dealing with business matters. Time blocking is
Yeah.
one of them. All that to say, time blocking is another one, and it's
No, I
very
love
involved.
that. I love that.
But some of the easier ones are yoga. I love yoga. I do yoga 6 to 7 times a week in the morning. I feel like it's just something that's so essential for us, as because our work is so physical, because we're always crouching over. Like eventually, your body starts to take a toll. My yoga practice has been something that I really love, and hope to do teacher training at some point too. And then I think my third thing is chlorophyll water with mint in it. I found this chlorophyll dropper that has it's mint flavored, and I just feel like, I don't know, I'm just really enjoying it right now because it's summer and because of the mint water, it just feels so refreshing. And then obviously chlorophyll is so good for you too. So I would say those are my three self-care
Yeah, I love
things.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I definitely need to try more yoga because I feel like you're right. It does take a toll. Being all hunched over like a little shrimp is tricky.
Yeah, I know.
And then the final question on the email was, what is an ingredient that you are obsessed with right now?
I mean, I feel like so much talk has been with hyaluronic acid, which I've always loved. And,
Yeah.
in learning and developing the brow wax, I love hyaluronic acid, but I also love growth factors, like growth factors that
Ooh.
everyone's talking about the salmon sperm facial. Have you heard of it?
No, I haven't. Oh my God, I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah, well, I think that's going to be like the next big thing, but basically it's just loaded with growth factors, and growth factors are good for boosting collagen and so many skincare benefits. And one of my favorite facials is having microneedling with growth factors and
Oh.
copper tripeptides and stuff too. I'm old. I have to keep up my stuff.
Well, you don't look it.
Thank you.
I love a growth factor. There's actually a company called Factor 5. I
Oh, yeah.
just saw it at a trade show. They're actually in Chico, where I'm from, so
Oh,
super
cool.
cool. A little bit more understanding of all of that. They have like a brow serum and an eye cream that's targeted for lashes and brows too, which I thought was a really cool, innovative, talking about carving out an area for us artists. It was cool to see that element
That's awesome.
embedded in a skincare line. Yeah.
Yeah. Very
Well,
cool.
thank you so much for giving us your time and coming on the podcast. I know my listeners are going to absolutely love it. I appreciate you so very much for being here.
Thank you. And thank you so much for having me on. And I just have to say that, it's so nice to see you doing so much for the brow community too. I think one of the things that we connected on is how much we love this industry. And I love that you have the podcast, and I love that you do so much advanced education. I love your manual. Your manual is like one of the best that I've ever seen. So it's just
Thank you
honestly,
so much.
it's such an honor to see someone that loves this industry as much as you do and putting out so much. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And I will see you guys next Thursday. Have a wonderful rest of your day.